Florida in flip-flops.
Hello everybody, so nice to see you again. Thank you so much for watching this video, and as usual I want to welcome you to Florida in flip-flops. Yep. So listen guys, today's video, are you curious? Me too. Let's check it out and let's see what's going on. Yep. This video is about myself, and I want to tell you a little bit about my passion, about my adventures, about my world trips, about how I got married in Sri Lanka, and then I married again in the USA, and then I did humanitarian aid after a tsunami and a refugee camp, and how my son Kevin, at the age of like 8-9 years old, was involved with grave robbers. That's right, in the Sierra Nevada of Colombia, and how he came home with a skull and bones. I mean, an incredible story. And also how my son and I have met in the deep, deep jungle of Colombia, the Kogi tribes, which have lived just away from any kind of civilization, just away from the world. That itself was a crazy adventure. So there is so much, guys. So let's do the first quiz. What do you think where I am from? Where's this accent coming from? What do you think? Yes, that's right. I'm from Switzerland. Well, you know, I just feel very international. It's difficult to say I'm from this country and I'm from that country because I've lived all over, so I feel very international. And I will also show you some really cool pictures. So I guess the only thing is kick back and relax. And are you ready? All right, I am. Let's do it. So I'll try to keep myself really short, okay? But I can't promise you anything. But let's start maybe when I was 7 years old, because that had a big impact for the rest of my life. So at 7-8 years old, right, we traveled a lot. We traveled through Europe, we traveled to tropical islands, we stayed in Guadeloupe, we stayed in the Seychelles. And my father did there like humanitarian aid, you know, he was building like pipelines through the jungle. And of course, that was my world. And then also in the Seychelles, we had a housekeeper and she had 8 children. So of course, you know, I was going with these kids in the jungle, and that was just my world because I was very outgoing. I was adventurous. I wanted to learn this culture and the language, and it just felt right. That was exactly who I was. But then when I came back to Switzerland, I'm like, something was missing. But let me tell you one thing, guys. Switzerland is really a very beautiful country. It's very safe. It has a good economy. It's organized like crazy. It's like, mind-blowing, right? Buses and trains are always on time. I mean, it's like a milk and honey country. I think I just didn't fit in with my personal mentality, you know, because I was so outgoing and so spontaneous and crazy. So in order to make me happy, I traveled a lot. I did like 3 world trips. Yeah, so I traveled through the Amazon River in Brazil. I went through Venezuela. I went through Tasmania, New Zealand, Australia, Malaysia, Egypt. I mean, you name it, I've been there. Hawaii, just everything, right? And then I got married in Sri Lanka, believe it or not, of course, right? Why would it be Switzerland? Yeah, I know. So I got married in Sri Lanka to a Ceylonese. And of course, that was me again, right? The tropics and waking up in the morning with the elephants, you know, the friendly people, good food, beautiful country as well. So, and I was married for 12 years. We had a beautiful son together. His name is Kevin. And unfortunately, I got divorced, but I still kept on traveling with my son, and at that time Kevin was only 6 years old, and I wanted to do that also in order to show him the world, the rich and the poor, and the different cultures and different lifestyles. And he already spoke like Italian and German and Spanish and Tamil and English, so he could communicate more or less with the world out there.
So guys, I thought it might be interesting for you to see some pictures of my work in Sri Lanka. This is a refugee camp which was built right after the tsunami in 2003. Here in these pictures you can see the devastation of the houses. And in this picture you just see how the road is swept away by the power of that water. Just swept away. It's incredible. So here you can see the beach with a lot of debris, and you can see to the left Kevin that's walking around. So in this picture I've collected some shoes that I found at the beach, and I just took a moment there to grieve and just remember all the lives that were taken by this horrible tsunami. Here you see the inside of a refugee camp. So they were dividing the rooms or the compartments between the different families with sheets and blankets or even plastic pieces. So here you can see a corridor that's divided with plastic, and it gets very hot, I tell you guys. In this picture, you can see somebody sleeping on the floor because I guess it just got too hot in these tiny compartments. And here in the corridor, they have a nice fresh breeze. The floor is nice and cool. So I guess that's the perfect way to have a good nap. So on top of the picture, you see again the inside of the camp. And underneath, you see a mother with her baby that just got some milk powder or flour. So on top of the picture, you see me where, we give out all sorts of food and clothes and just all the necessary things that the victims need at that moment. And underneath you see the tents that were donated from the Red Cross or other humanitarian organizations. And I tell you, it gets really hot in these tents. Even in the refugee camp, in that house, in the building itself, it was so brutally hot. I really don't know how they do that. And here you can see other tents. So here is Kevin playing with hundreds of kids in a refugee camp. And of course he was the highlight of the camp, coming from a foreign country and bringing food to everybody. So he really had a good time. The kids loved him. And yeah, they were playing wildly everywhere. And of course, I was absolutely aware of the danger I was putting my son into, playing in the dirt, playing with the broken or sharp items that were lying everywhere around. And also the disease like diarrhea, malaria, rabies, hepatitis, tuberculosis, and so much more that can rapidly overwhelm a small, crowded camp without waste management, bathrooms, access to safe water, and promotion of good hygiene. So, of course, before we left Switzerland, Kevin got a huge boost of various vaccines, as you can imagine, just to help him cope with our situation and my work. So here is Kevin on the bed in a hotel room in Singapore with a lot of bandages all over. And now you're probably asking yourself, oh boy, what happened here? Well, as I predicted and I suspected, he caught a skin disease in the refugee camp in Sri Lanka. No wonder, right? I mean, playing in the dirt with hundreds of kids. And so then I decided, to stop in Singapore because I knew that they have great doctors, good hospitals to get his treatment. And I tell you, Kevin really had a lot of fun in that hotel room. Finally, he got some air condition and he could watch TV all day long. And after 1 week, his skin got much better, and that's when I decided to continue our travels. So here I'm gonna show you some really funny pictures of Kevin in Colombia. So this first picture is Kevin in a cockpit. Well, what is it all about? So Kevin has a little flight booklet where he writes down all his flights, flight numbers, mileages, and the name of the captain that's on board. So, he usually asks a stewardess if she could bring that booklet to the captain to get a signature. And sure enough, the steward came and said, yes, of course, I will help you to get a signature from the captain. And 50 minutes later, the stewardess came back and she said, well, listen, would you mind if Kevin stays for the landing in Cartagena with the captain? And I'm like, OMG, are you kidding me? So yes, Kevin stayed during the landing in the cockpit with the captain. Well, here you go with the good old days. So that was really incredible, that was our first encounter with the Colombians, with the Colombian airline, and that's what we got. So I guess Kevin got really lucky. So here you see Kevin with my father on the bike near the beach, and in this picture, you can see again Kevin, my father, in Cartagena, enjoying some good fresh tropical fruits. And here, look at Kevin. He looks like a Colombian. And again, here Kevin looks like a native Colombian. And believe me, life for Kevin, as I mentioned before, was not always easy. As he looked like a Colombian and spoke costeño, which is the Spanish dialect from the Caribbean coast, it wasn't always easy to convince his friends or just the people that he was originally from Switzerland. And yes, he was half Ceylonese and half Swiss, but most of his life at that time he was spending in Switzerland, and therefore he was very protective of his ancestry. And it made him super mad if they just wouldn't believe him. That was just very sad, and yeah, he was very upset about that. So here you see a picture with another incredible story. So over the holidays, we mostly stayed in my father's finca, which was located in the Sierra Nevada de Santa Marta, which is an isolated mountain range in northern Colombia. And one day, as I was walking through the village, I met a very interesting person that looked like a native Colombian. And I've never encountered somebody dressed like that before in my father's little village. So of course I was very curious about this man. So I started to have a very interesting conversation. And he was telling me that he was a member of the Kogi tribe, which were living very secluded without civilization, technology in the mountains. So when he said the word Kogi tribe, I quickly remembered my son's history class, because just weeks prior of this encounter, my son had a huge exam about all the different tribes existing in Colombia. And I was totally shocked to seeing this person right in front of me. And so then I asked him if he would mind if I would come and see his village, if I could take maybe my brother and Kevin and just see where he was living and just maybe learn about his culture and his life. And that we would really be very respectful of his tribe. And at first, the man wasn't very keen about the idea, taking foreigners or just anyone outside his tribe to his village, because they prefer not to mix with outsiders, which of course I absolutely understood. But after a while, he finally agreed to take us up the mountain. And I was so happy, because imagine that. Kevin would have the opportunity to see the tribe live, how they breathe and live, and not from the perspective of a history book. And that was so huge. I mean, that was a unique opportunity. So here I want to show you some more pictures of the Kogi with me, Kevin, my brother. And the whole experience was just mind-blowing. Because when I stood there in middle of these huts, surrounded by the children and the adults, I felt like I was taken back in time. It was so fascinating and unique. And I don't even know if some of the members have ever seen outsiders, because most of them were very shy and reserved. Some of them didn't smile. They were hiding in their houses or their huts. So it was just a very incredible situation. We also tried not to take too many pictures so that they wouldn't feel like overwhelmed with the modern world. And by the way, Kogi in their language means jaguar. And they say that they are descendants of the Tairona people. So the Kogi have clung to their traditional way of life in the mountains before the times of the Spanish conquest, which is over 500 years ago. And that is so incredible. So I hope, guys, you are enjoying all these pictures. So guys, and here I have another incredible and unbelievable story. As you can see in the picture, there are bones, there is a skull, and you will ask yourself what was going on. So yes, when I saw this picture, guys, I really had 1,000 questions. I do not remember everything that happened that day. Again, this happened in the Sierra Nevada, where my father had his finca. And that day, Kevin was playing as usual with the friends. That's what I thought of. And I was just at home cooking, doing my chores, going for a walk. And then later that evening, he came home with a plastic bag. And I'm like, okay, what is in there? What's going on? And he said, well, I just went with some grave robbers. And I'm like, what grave robbers? So I was really in shock. I mean, I still don't know the full story. I guess I have to call Kevin. But just for information, that many grave robbers or treasure hunters are still looking for the today's Sierra Indians gold, the Tairona tribe, in our area, the Sierra Nevada region. Because the Tairona tribe, many years ago, they were making very distinctive and masterful gold work. And I guess that's what the grave robbers or treasure hunters are looking for today, the gold that the tribe took into their graves. So here you can see me with the children in Cartagena. Wow, look how happy I look. Here below, I guess I just checked out some cuts, injuries, or scratches, because these guys were mostly walking without shoes every day. So here you see Kevin working in the kindergarten section. Look at that. And there is me again with the kids in the kindergarten. I hope you enjoyed these pictures.
So one day, my dad wanted to talk to me. And so he was very concerned that I was always alone without a man. And Kevin was, traveling and living his life without a father. So he said, listen, you need a man. And I'm like, no, I don't need a man. I was an independent woman. I worked. I had my own money. So, why you need a guy, right? That was my opinion at that time. But then talking to my dad for hours and hours, and my dad can be very persuasive, you know. So after talking, for hours, I went back home, right? And I thought about it. I'm like, well, yeah, maybe it would be nice having somebody waking up in the morning and, eating together and having all these romantic things together and go through life and getting old, right? And yeah, maybe it would be nice if Kevin had like a father figure. And believe it or not, I went on the internet shopping for a man, and I've never done that in my entire life. And I was not really looking for a guy in Colombia because I didn't see a future in Colombia for my son. You know, it was a great experience and everything else, but I just didn't see a future there. And so I thought, okay, where would you like to live, right? Because I've traveled around the world. I've been in Australia and Singapore and Asia and South, just everywhere. And I'm like, okay, where was I really happy? Which country was impressing me the most? So I'm like, yeah, Australia was nice, New Zealand was nice, England was nice, Italy was nice. America was nice, you know, and so I just focused on these places that I saw a future, you know, and sure enough, within like 2 weeks, I met that guy, and he was a Floridian, and his name was Robert. Guys, I tell you, I fell so hard for this Floridian boy. So you know, we exchanged emails and we were talking, right? And then after like 10 weeks, I'm like, I need to see this guy. I can't sleep. I can't eat. I'm so in love. I need to see this guy right now. So at that time, Robert couldn't come to Colombia because of many reasons. So I flew to Florida for 5 days. And of course, everybody was like, are you crazy? You're running behind a guy to Florida. You don't even know him. He could be a killer. He could be a rapist. He could be a pedophile. I mean, are you nuts? And I'm like, yes, guys, I just have to try it. You know, I was just like so much in love, like never before. You will never guess what we've decided in the 5 days we had together. So we decided to get married. Yes, you heard right. We decided to get married. That was like the second day. The third day, we bought furniture, right? Because he had a 1-bedroom apartment and, no place really to eat. And I like the chair and the table and stuff like that, you know. So we bought furniture. And we also looked for other apartments, like 2-bedroom apartments, right? And then we looked for a school for Kevin, you know. Of course, I left Kevin in Colombia while I was doing these 5 days with Robert, you know, because you never know. So yeah, guys, it was crazy. In 5 days, we decided to get married, and we were really so much in love, and the world was just like heavenly good, you know. So after the 5 days, I flew back to Colombia, and I told my son, Kevin, you're gonna get a new dad, a new school, new friends, and he was pretty happy with this decision. I'm telling you, I was surprised, but of course, happily surprised, right? So yeah, and of course my dad, oh my God, you should hear my dad, right? That suggested I should get a partner. He was so mad. He's like, I cannot believe that you're gonna get killed. And everybody else, my friends in Colombia, my brother, they were so mad. But guys, when you go for love, when you feel it in your heart, you feel it in your bones, in your guts, just all over your body, go for it. So only 2 months after having visited Robert in Florida for the 5 days, we moved, me and Kevin, he just turned 10 years old, we moved to Florida. Only 2 months after I've met him the first time. Yep, that's crazy, guys, totally. I understand your concern. So anyway, we got married and my husband hasn't killed me yet, right? Here's the proof, I'm alive. And Kevin got the best stepfather he could ever wish for. So that was awesome. So marrying a US citizen is definitely nerve-wracking, and it's a huge challenge. And it's not like in Europe or maybe other countries where you just get married and then you wait 2-3 months to get a work visa, a work permit, or whatever, right? The USA is really very complicated. And for Kevin, it wasn't always easy. Yes, he wanted to come to America and he was happy to be here and he really enjoys his stay here, right, in America. But you imagine, this boy has traveled around the world. He has seen disaster areas after tsunami. He worked with street children. They had no clothes on. He worked in the dirt. And, he was always traveling with adults, and that's why he was so advanced mentally also, And then he comes to this little, very cute, small university town in Florida, and his schoolmates, they haven't traveled as much as Kevin. They didn't speak 5 languages like Kevin and didn't just have this life experience already, right? And he knew all these cultures and this was a huge challenge for Kevin, as you can imagine. So there were some times that Kevin really had a hard time because he asked himself, where am I from? Who am I, right? What is my identity, And then his father was Ceylonese, his mom was European. He was this beautiful mixed child with a brown skin and green eyes, as handsome as could be, of course, And it was challenging, and it definitely had, of course, advantages by traveling all over and disadvantages. So you always have both sides, the good and the bad. So of course, traveling to the US, living here hasn't been always easy for me either, because for example, the USA didn't accept my nursing degree from Switzerland, so there are all kinds of challenges. But overall, we overcame all these difficult times, and today, guess what? We're married 12 years. Yes, we're married 12 years with this crazy story, only meeting for 5 days, and we're happily married after all. Yay! Happy end. But another surprise came like 4 years into the marriage. You will never guess what happened. Well, maybe you will. So when I was 43 years old, like 4 years into the marriage, something like that, I got pregnant at 43. All right, guys, don't tell anybody, okay? Well, who cares? 43 and pregnant, 50 and pregnant, who cares? Life is life, right? Things happen. Important thing that you have love in your life and you're happy, So today that boy is 7 years old and his name is Lucas Alessandro. Do you want to meet him? Yes, come on. Say hi.
Hi, my name is Lucas. I'm Swiss American.
Oh, you're Swiss American. Well, in Switzerland they speak German, French, Italian, and Rätoromansch. Do you know one of these languages? What?
Parli italiano.
Parli italiano, sì, certo, parliamo l'italiano.
Sprichst du Deutsch?
Sprichst du Deutsch? Spricht ihr Deutsch da draußen? You guys speak German? Do you understand Swiss German?
Ja.
Kannst du sagen Küchenkästli? Can you say Küchenkästli? Which means kitchen cupboard in Swiss German. Kitchen cupboard, Küchenkästli. All right, let me see.
Küchenkästli.
Ooh, that was pretty good. Küchenkästli, very good. All right, Luki, thank you so much for coming to Mama. So, as you know, we live in Florida, and here we do have a bed and breakfast. And of course, that's exactly what I love to do. What's my passion, right? Speaking different languages, being with these foreigners from all over the world and making them feel comfortable at home. And it's just who I am, it's just my passion. I can be my own boss. This is my blood and my sweat that I put into this work, this business, or this passion. But still, there was something I wanted for my son to experience. And that was Switzerland. So yes, of course, now you're like, oh my God, here she is again, and she could have traveled around the world with that poor 7-year-old boy and her husband, right? And maybe the other older son. No, nothing like that, guys. I just wanted that my son experience Switzerland with their school system. And Swiss neutrality is one of the principles, right? That means we're not involved in any armed or political conflicts in around the world. And the Red Cross was also founded in Switzerland in 1863, and it provides worldwide assistance to victims of disasters. And maybe the neutrality, the not being involved in war and fights and political issues, we thought it would be a really safe country to raise our child. So then I made the first move to go to Switzerland because I had to build up the nest for my family, right? You cannot just enter the country and like, okay, here I am, give me food, give me an apartment. So I went there with $400. I stayed first in an Airbnb, and then I also had a job interview, which went very well. So I had the job. Then some few months later, I got an apartment. And then after like 3 months, Lucas and Robert, they came to Switzerland. And I'm telling you, everything was as I expected, you know, especially with the school system, right? And they really loved Switzerland. I mean, Lucas loved his school, right? He was walking to school, of course, like all the other little Swiss kids, you know. The teacher was great, and everything just worked out just perfectly. Also, another funny thing that happened, that one day Luki came home from school and he said, oh, I've seen the teacher's house. We just went there. And I'm like, what? You went to the teacher's house during classes? So yes, I guess the teacher just felt like, you know what? Let's go with the kids to my house because I have some chickens and I have a turtle or whatever. And they just went to the teacher's house. And also another day, they went hiking in the mountains. They just went for a walk, whatever. And Luki came home and said, oh, we just went up the hill and we went up there hiking, and you know, and I had no idea. And I'm like, oh my God. So I told my husband, I'm like, could you imagine that in the United States, where a teacher just takes like 15 kids to her house, or where the teacher just decides, you know what, let's just go for a walk, you know, without having the permission of the parents. Of course, Lucas was totally in his element. He was as happy as could be. Robert was happy too. He just waited for his work permit. But as you know, things don't always go as planned, right? So here it comes. So some months into this adventure, right, in Switzerland, I just felt something that wasn't right. I felt like I was in a deep hole. I was not that bubbly person anymore, this happy person, this outgoing person. I just felt like a stranger, like a foreigner in my own country, where I grew up, where I have lived, where I went to school, you know? And I have switched jobs every 2-3 months because I thought, oh, well, maybe the next job will make me happy, or the next job. So it was this circle, and it was just really very hard because I'm like, oh my God, you know, I think I'm failing. And I wanted, you know, this world for my son, right? And also, we have missed Lucas' grandparents a lot. So these people, these grandparents, are not blood related. They were once our neighbors, and they were unfortunately left without children. I mean, they were there at any time of our life. So we really have missed them a lot. And of course, Lucas too. So if you guys would like to hear more about this adventure, let me know. And I could do a separate video about my experience in Switzerland and what I went through, because otherwise we're gonna be here for hours and hours. And yes, we're back in Florida. Here we are in this beautiful Sunshine State. And of course, we've learned a lot, we've grown a lot, and what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. So being back in Florida, I just wanted to show the world all these unexpected situations when you're living here, you know, when you're on the road, when you're out in nature, and that is really a huge adventure. And as you know, I love the adventure, I love the unexpected stuff. So guys, this is part of my story. There is so much more, but you know, I don't want to go on and on and on, right? Because you have to go back either, I don't know, take shower, eat something, go to work, or go to bed. So I just want to tell you guys, if you have any story to tell me, you want to tell me like meeting somebody on the internet, or you have some issues here and there, just let me know. And don't forget, just enjoy your life the fullest. Don't necessarily always listen to people, follow your God, you know, without a risk, there is nothing in life, right? Yeah, just don't forget us, don't forget all our other videos out there about hiking and nature and things that happen in our life, right? So thank you so much for your patience, thank you so much for being here today with me, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye bye.